Married men of Reddit. What moment with your future wife made you think, yup, I'm asking this girl to marry me? In my first week as licensed as a paramedic, I had a 2-year-old pass away on me when I got off work. I drove to my girlfriend's place and told her about my day. I was pretty numb at the time, trying to process this kid's death despite all my efforts. I lay down on her couch and she just wrapped her arms around me and laid with me for 3 to 4 hours as I tried to process. She didn't push or ask lots of questions, just lay there quietly and help me. I slowly was able to talk my way through it, and then the tears started. She cried with me. I felt the whole world was so dark and ugly, but she was my island of light. Started saving up for a ring that week and asked her to marry me 6 months later. In September, we celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. I'm still a paramedic, and she's still my island. Former inmates. What's the most deserved thing you saw happen to someone in prison? A guy got slowly stabbed over 50 times with a red-hot blade. You see, when this guy first came in, everyone immediately noticed that he had the "I like children" look. We took some time to fish out what he was in here for, and he didn't make it particularly hard for us by cracking some predatory jokes in the cafeteria, a big no-no in a prison. Things took a huge turn when his cellmate caught him jerking the chicken to a hand-drawn picture of an unclothed young girl. Coincidentally, the cellmate just so happened to have a young daughter who was taken advantage of unalived a year prior, and weeks later, a gut-wrenching discovery was made. The predator guy opened up about why he was imprisoned to his cellmate, and he revealed that it was for taking advantage of and unaliving a young girl. And in a sick and twisted turn of fate, the girl he did this to just happened to be the daughter of the cellmate. Word got around, and a few days later, this predator was held down and gagged in a secluded area of prison, while the father of a deceased girl slowly shanked him to death with a peeping hot metal rod. Reddit. What is the creepiest true story someone has ever told you? My grandmother's entire life, she had a recurring nightmare. In this nightmare, she would be walking down a long, dark hallway, turn to the left, open a door, and see something terrible. She'd always wake up before seeing what it was. In her 40s, she, her husband, my dad, and my aunt were on vacation. They booked the hotel at the last minute, so they ended up having to get 2 rooms with 2 twin beds on opposite sides of the floor. My dad wakes up around 3 a.m. and can automatically tell something's not right. He calls out in the darkness, "Dad," no response. He turns on the bedside light. "Dad," he says, a little louder this time. Still no response. Getting worried, he slides out of bed and shakes his father. He doesn't wake up. My dad ran down the hotel hallway to my grandma's room and started banging on the door. My grandma worriedly opens the door and my dad shouts, "Something's wrong with Dad." He leads her down the hallway, a long hallway, to the last door on the left. My grandmother reaches the door, turns to left, and sees her husband dead in bed. Heart attack. She never had the dream again. My fiancée got a secret face tattoo, and I don't think I can marry her. My fiancée, Kim, just revealed that she got a face tattoo, and I'm in shock. She took 3 sick days from work to recover and hid this decision from everyone. In our 6 years together, Kim never showed any interest in tattoos. Her sister discovered it when she visited Kim out of concern. Kim explained that she didn't tell anyone beforehand because she didn't want to be talked out of it, and hid the results because of the swelling and redness. The tattoo consists of Japanese symbols going down her forehead and under her eye. Kim's parents, who are Japanese immigrants, are deeply upset since tattoos are linked to crime in their culture. When I confronted Kim, she got offended and started a fight. She works a public-facing job in the financial industry, and I'm worried this could ruin her career. She blocked my number after our argument and is now ghosting me and her sister. I'm struggling to understand this sudden and drastic change. Is there any chance I can be happy married to someone who made such a reckless decision without considering the consequences? I really need advice. The full story is on my channel and linked below. A nun takes a taxi and notices the very handsome driver won't stop staring at her. She asks him why he is staring, and he replies, "I have a question to ask you, but I don't want to offend you." The nun answers, "My son, you cannot offend me when you're as old as I am and have been a nun as long as I have. You get a chance to see and hear just about everything." "Well," says the driver, "I've always had a fantasy to have a nun kiss me." The nun responds, "Let's see what we can do about that. Number 1, you have to be single, and number 2, you must be Catholic." The driver is very excited and says, "Yes, I'm single and Catholic." The nun instructs, "Okay, pull into the next alley. There." The nun fulfills his fantasy with a kiss that would make a man blush. When they get back on the road, the cab driver starts crying. Concerned, the nun asks, "My dear child, why are you crying?" The driver confesses, "Forgive me, but I have sinned. I lied, and I must confess. I'm married, and I'm not a Catholic. That's okay." The nun smiles and says, "My name is Gary, and I'm going to a Halloween party." What is the most cruel thing a family member has done to you? Oh boy, here it goes. When I was about 20, my cousin Julie announced that she would be getting married. My mom came to me and tearfully explained that Julie wanted me to wear our recently deceased grandmother's wedding dress, a pink tea-length dress, so that it would be like a part of my grandmother was at the ceremony. It had to be me, because my grandmother was very slim and I was the smallest person in our family. I agreed. I tried on the dress and it was too tight, way too tight. My mother told me to starve myself and don't put a single thing in that mouth. I did. I starved myself stupid for 3 months. I was sickly, pale, had dropped about 20 pounds from my already slender frame, and had constant headaches, but the dress fit. My mother kept telling me how great I looked. We flew to the wedding. My family lives across the country. Everyone was shocked at my appearance, but said nothing. The day of the wedding came, and I appeared in my grandmother's wedding dress. I thought people were acting strangely towards me, but I didn't think too much of it. I found out later that Julie had not asked for me to wear the dress. She knew nothing about it. My mother had been telling people that I was on drugs, not true, to get attention and sympathy. She convinced me to drop weight and show up to Julie's wedding in my dead grandmother's wedding dress to show everyone how drugged out and unstable I had become in order to get more attention and sympathy. What is the most disrespectful thing someone did to you while you were on an airplane? Laugh at me. I just found out my mom was in the hospital dying and had frantically booked a flight out to go be with her. I'd had some trouble with TSA if something in my purse had slipped through a hole in the lining and the x-ray had picked it up. So after a week of shredding my purse lining to get the offending item out and pass through security, I was a mess. Finally got on my plane, exhausted. It was 5 a.m. and overwhelmed. About halfway through my flight, it finally caught up to me. My mom was dying. Silent tears started flowing. I couldn't stop them. Suddenly, from across the aisle, I hear laughter and turn to see a boy who looked about 12, staring at me and laughing. Are you seriously crying about being on a plane? Getting worse, I wanted to punch him. Instead, I just lost it verbally. Shut the fuck up, you little shit, I said. He started nudging the woman next to him who was sleeping in was his mother and babbling on about the awful things I called him. I told her that. Ah, yes, I said that. And yes, I stand by it. My mom is in a hospital bed dying right now, and I'm on my way to her. Her son was a little shit for turning me. Her face turned stone, angry as it turned white. She was pissed at him. If that kid could have jumped out of the plane right then, he would have. She apologized to me for his behavior, and they had quite the quiet, heated conversation. What's something you wish to confess being anonymous on Reddit? My daughter, 17F, called me around midnight because she smoked cannabis for the first time, and she immediately started feeling anxious and regretful. I had mentioned in one of our discussions that it is possible that people become anxious, paranoid, if they react badly to cannabis. Because she was panicking, I, 55 mem, had to go pick her up and calm her down, telling her she was gonna be okay, etc. I told her, your mouth will feel dry, you will feel that time slows down, you may twitch a bit, nothing scary, don't worry. But the thing is, I was high myself from edibles on this slow Saturday night, but she never figured out that's why I knew so much. People who were born deaf but gained hearing later in life, what objects did you expect to make noise? Not me, but my godfather, who is also my dad's lifelong best friend, was born with hearing, but lost it before age 2 due to some health issues. He went his entire childhood deaf, and in his 20s, he finally got a hearing aid. At that time, he and his wife were living in the downtown area of a large city. Apparently, he had the hearing aid for about 2 weeks before he threw it out, saying everything was too loud. He hated the noise and sound, and things were more peaceful without it. 15 years later, he moved out into the country onto a few hundred acres of woods. Still, he refused to wear a hearing aid and kept refusing for the next 10 years. Finally, his wife convinced him to give it another try, and his mind was blown. He couldn't believe how quiet everything was and how much he enjoyed hearing. He explained that he had thought the noise of the traffic downtown was the wind and that it sounded like that everywhere, all the time. So, for over 25 years, he thought wind sounded like hundreds of cars driving by.